Hey everyone. This is my first vlog attempt. I usually write, as you probably know if you're seeing this. I doubt anyone who doesn't know me is watching this really poorly produced video. Um, but I'm giving it a shot to do a video because it takes a really long time to write vlogs and fact check everything and arrange all my thoughts in a way that I think is worth anyone's time to read. So video's easy. You can just put this on in the background and not pay attention to any of the mistakes I'm making and fallacies I'm spouting and all that. So hopefully this is cool and we'll see how it goes. And let me know if you have suggestions or hate it or like it, and maybe I'll do more. But I thought that because I'm going to be heading out to New Jersey next week for the Christmas holiday, for the first time in several years. I haven't been going for a while. That maybe it'll be a good topic to talk about my feelings about Christmas and the holidays in general in the wintertime. So that's what this topic is going to be about, which it probably says somewhere. I'll pretend I can see your window. You can see it somewhere on this video, like a title or something. But yeah, so here goes. I have very negative feelings about winter and Christmas, especially. Um, it has something I've been kind of thinking about and unpacking, I guess is the word people like to say now, for several years. Actually, probably decades now, really. Uh, when I was a teenager, much like many teenagers, especially of my generation, I rebelled against my religious upbringing, which was not like extreme in any way. And I still have like lots of positive memories and feelings about the Episcopalian Church, which I find to be like, now that I've had the the perspective of growing up in the United States and moving all around the country and learning more about philosophy and religion, Episcopalians seem like pretty great compared to most religions, at least Christian religions. So I have a lot less harsh feelings about it now than I did then, but I still don't like a lot of it. And a lot of this is American cultural stuff that I don't like about it too. So it's not just about Episcopalians or Christians or any of that. But it is Christmas, so it's a Christian holiday, so it's gonna overlap. But anyway, um, I think the first thing that really makes me understand a lot about why I don't like Christmas is I have been diagnosed with seasonal affective disorder, and I learned about that 5 years ago, I'd say, something like that, when I was in therapy with my ex. We were talking about why my moods seem to shift in the winter months and have been for a while, and weren't it wasn't as bad in places where I've lived that were not as it wasn't as obvious that it was winter when I lived in Phoenix, for example, or Las Vegas, or even here in California. Like winter here is not very harsh. It's more harsh here than it is in Vegas, but not by a lot. Um, Maryland really sucked, but Maryland sucked in general, so it's hard to tell. And New Jersey, of course, where I grew up, is like very obviously wintry, and I think winter is probably like 6 months long in New Jersey compared to out here in California, where it's maybe 3 months, something like that. And even then, it still doesn't really snow or anything. Um, so what that means that I have seasonal affective disorder or seasonal depression, whatever you want to call it, is that uh, when during the winter months, I'm more moody and I experience my depression that I have year round a little bit more sharply than I do, yeah, during the other seasons. And part of that has to do with a vitamin D deficiency and not being in the sun as much because the sun's not up as long during the day, and because it's usually more clouds during the winter and various other reasons. Um, But a lot of it has to do with like if I wake up in the morning and it's dark and I go to work and it's just starting to get light out, but I'm in my office and then I get out of work and the sun's setting, that means that I'm missing out on a lot of that. And I take vitamins now and I am aware of it now, so I try to take a break midday when I go into the office at work, or if I work from home, of course, I walk a Calbee in the middle of the day and get some sunlight and all that. So there's different ways that I'm working around my that, but I wasn't aware of it for a long time. And learning about that helped me understand why I felt so crappy during the holiday season. Um, Another piece of it was just, like I said, the rebelling against my religion and not really liking Christianity a whole lot and not wanting to talk about Jesus constantly or Christmas constantly or listening to the music all the time that I found to be very pretentious and boring. And it's something like how I feel about candy corn or Peeps or candy canes. There's these things in our lives that we only experience during a certain part of the year, but if we had access to them all year, which we do, we choose not to, and it's because they suck. Candy corn is awful. Peeps are gross. Candy canes are generic and not really good, honestly. And you have occasional things that are great, like Cadbury eggs, but we'd probably die if we had those all year round too. So maybe it's for the best. Um, so Christmas is just filled with a lot of this like fluff that I don't actually like, and a lot of this religious context that I'm sick of hearing about, and exclusion. Like people who aren't celebrating Christmas are kind of excluded from a half a month of activities, or they're forced to experience it constantly and be barraged by it, even if they don't believe it and don't like have anything to do with it, or heaven forbid they have bad experiences and trauma related to it. I'd hate to. I'm glad I'm one of the people who hasn't really been traumatized by religion. I just don't like it on a philosophical level. But there are people, obviously, if anyone paying attention knows that there's people who've been abused by the church and have left the church because of that. And then every winter they have to hear this bullshit Christmas music constantly everywhere they go. It's got to be rough. It's got to be really awful on those people. And I know that I feel like such a small portion of that pain. But it's still something I feel. I don't really like any of it, and it hits me. Um, and then there's the commercialization and the way that this this is probably the biggest thing that makes me dislike Christmas. And the way I learned that is I would go home for Christmas every year and be gloomy and love seeing my family and love having dinner with everybody and love hanging out with everybody for like a half a week or a week, depending on what time I can get off work. Um, I love all that. And I always felt guilty about like kind of having it be tainted by this event that I just couldn't stand. And then I started going out with my ex, and Christmas is extremely important to her family. So we negotiated that, oh, I'll go home for Thanksgiving for my family, and we'll go together for that, and then we'll go to her family for Christmas. And I hated Christmas there as just as much as I did at my place, probably more, just because I wasn't around my family, and I loved her family, but like, you know, favoritism. um, and Going home for Thanksgiving is great. I love Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving is probably my favorite holiday in the whole year, and it still takes place in winter. I'm just getting used to this camera. Still takes place in winter, so I'm still experiencing the same like the skies are gray. I'm not getting my vitamin D. I'm experiencing my depression, all that stuff. I still get that during Thanksgiving, and it's still like everybody's wearing sweaters. Everyone's still listening to Christmas music, probably, or at least I have to hear it like on the week leading up to it, usually, or it's still like in the air is like that Christmas stuff, but it doesn't feel quite as bad, and it still has a lot of those other aspects to it. But it just has it still has the time with loved ones. Like I said, it still has the great food, going home and like having dinner with like my families. And I say families because, as many of you know, parents divorced and remarried, and then I have aunts and uncles that have been divorced and remarried, and extended relatives. And whenever I go home, I try to hit like three or four different like events so that I can try to see as many people as I can. And like, but all of them have good food. All of them, all of my family seem, in my opinion, has very good taste in food and drink, and they all throw good parties. So that's awesome. And it sort of felt like I am getting everything out of Thanksgiving that I liked in Christmas without any of the crap that I couldn't stand. And so that also kind of made me realize some of the stuff I don't like about Christmas. I think I don't have to worry about the religion as much, even though we still say our prayer before dinner, and I still just opt out. Um, but it's only for a couple, like a minute, maybe two, and half of it has to do with just paying respects to our family members that aren't around anymore, and that I also like doing. So that's not that big a deal. There's no gift giving, which is the consumerism part that I can't stand. So much of what gift giving is now feels a lot like stuff that people just tell each other they want, and then they all buy it for each other and exchange it in some equivalent way. Like you go to a white elephant and everybody spends $25, and then nobody ends up with anything they actually want. And it just feels like an obligation that like, ah, crap, I have to go buy gifts for people, and I don't have inspiration to buy something for somebody, but I just have to because there's like this deadline of either December 25th or whenever the holiday party at work is, or whenever you're seeing certain people for the holiday week. Like maybe you can't see your friends on the actual holiday, but you can see them the weekend before, and so you have that deadline, and like it's just so much extra stress and garbage that doesn't mean anything. And I don't want people to buy me gifts because they have to, because it's like my birthday or because it's like Christmas or whatever reason. I want, if somebody sees something that makes them think of me, they send it to me, and I don't care how much it costs, and I don't want it to cost much, ideally. Um, but like, so much of those logistics just take the wind out of my sails, and uh, I try to give people gifts when I feel inspired to, and maybe that means that sometimes I don't give certain people in my life gifts very often, but it means that when I do, that they're heartfelt and they mean something and spontaneous, and I think that's a big part of it. I don't like the alternative. So when people who do still celebrate Christmas like really want to get me things, that's why I just usually just ask them to donate to charities I like. And I have that whole blog post that I'm sure many of you have seen already, detailing like charities that I like that you can donate to in my name if you want to give me something, and I appreciate that. I appreciate that a lot.